Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, September 11th, 2021. And this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, most Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before I do get started, this is a family-friendly podcast, although sometimes words will fly, and sometimes we may show things that might be too intense for young viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. Well, I would be remiss to say, guys, that at this point, yes, the date is not lost upon me, that yes, when you guys are watching this is kind of being uploaded on the 10th, but when you guys watch this, it will be September 11th, 2021. I would be remiss to say that nearly 20 years ago, that the U.S. actually changed. The twin planes did crash into the World Trade Center and caused a massive amount of damage and an enormous amount of lives, which eventually did lead to the U.S. opening theaters of war in Iraq and Afghanistan. As you guys have probably been aware of, we've actually withdrawn from Afghanistan under President Biden, and of course, it wasn't the smoothest thing ever. The only way I can put this, guys, as far as 9/11 goes, yes, a lot of people kind of hold that a little bit dearer than others. Others who have lost friends and family and loved ones in that tragic event will feel it more than anyone else. The thing about it is, is America more safer? We can go down the rabbit hole of that situation. Have we improved? Have we still fight for freedom? I mean, a lot of people feel certain ways about 9/11, but at the end of the day, it was an event in history, and if the Republicans have it their way, they'll try to dress it up as the nicest way of saying we went to war. So, again, however you choose to honor it or do 9/11, do you. But on the other side of the world, let's get to the fact that what Biden is fighting. Again, President Biden is fighting a war itself on many fronts. One of them is with the GOP basically wanting to defy him on vaccines.
Touring a school in Washington, D.C., responding defiantly to fierce backlash from Republicans vowing to challenge his aggressive plan, mandating 2/3 of American workers get vaccinated.
Have at it. Some Republican governors have been so cavalier with the health of these kids, so cavalier with the health of their communities. We're playing for real here. This isn't a game.
The Republican National Committee is threatening to sue the administration, with at least 19 GOP governors vowing to defy the rules.
What the Biden administration is doing is government overreach, pure and simple.
He is picking a real fight with hard-working Americans. This president is saying to them, look, you can either get vaccinated or I, as one individual, is going to threaten your ability to feed your family. And that's just wrong.
It follows President Biden mandating all federal workers and most health care providers get vaccinated. Any employee in a business with more than 100 workers must get vaccinated or take a weekly COVID test.
This is not about freedom or personal choice. It's about protecting yourself and those around you.
But back in December, the president opposed a mandate.
I don't think it should be mandatory. I wouldn't demand to be mandatory.
And tonight, mixed reviews from businesses. An independent business group warning the move will threaten the fragile small business recovery. But the Business Roundtable, that includes dozens of America's biggest corporations, welcomes the Biden administration's continued vigilance fighting COVID. In New York, Jessica Johnson Cope, whose security firm has 160 employees, supports the vaccine, but worries about the burden of a mandate.
I'm worried about people not getting vaccinated because of vaccine hesitancy and then the logistical and cost impact it could have on our business.
And Peter, I know the president's getting it from all sides. There are some health experts saying he didn't go far enough.
Yeah, Lester, that's right. Dr. Fauci among them, saying that he would have preferred mandating vaccines for workers without that testing option. Tonight, the White House argues it's on firm legal ground for the mandate, relying on a 50-year-old law that gives the federal government the power to protect employees from grave dangers.
Well, I mean, here's the thing about this. I have been saying this about vaccines. It's going to happen. It's been happening since the FDA approved Pfizer, which means that Moderna and Johnson & Johnson are not too far off from being federally approved themselves. It is going to happen. Okay? In the world, like I said, I was saying this before, and I've said this again in a previous podcast. The world is going to move on without you at this point. If you don't want to get vaccinated, again, I love when people sit there and say, this is taking away your rights. It's not. It's not taking away your rights at all. Because if it was truly taking away your rights, there would be somebody at your door right now forcing you to take the vaccine. The thing about it is, you can't sit there and think that your choice, it's the way I'm pointing this out, guys, is that you cannot take your choice. And don't think that consequences will not follow. Like, for example, you can't sit there and be like, well, I'm not going to take the vaccine because I don't need it. I don't need it. Okay. You don't think consequences are going to follow with that? You don't think consequences are going to be like, okay, well, you don't want to take the vaccine. Your insurance is going to go up. Your job may or may not require vaccine mandates. But if they do, then yes, they can now, because that federally approved, that FDA approved vaccine, because it's FDA approved now, which means there's no liability for companies. Companies can sit there and say, okay, we want the vaccine mandated. Either you get the shot or you're terminated. And you can't sit there and claim wrongful discrimination because now it's FDA approved. If it wasn't FDA approved, just under emergency sanction, you might have some legal leeway there. But now that we have FDA approved, oh, that's out the window now. And even more so, the GOP are going to fight this just because they fight anything that's democratic. If Democrats sit there and said we're going to fight for oxygen, GOP candidates would be trying to hold their breath. I'm just saying, they would sit there and try to hold their breath of it all. And I love how Biden put it. Have at it. We have the law on our side. And the thing about it is, GOP, it's like, what are you Republicans and conservatives actually fight? This is government overreach. Really? So what Greg Abbott did in Texas about signing that abortion law, not overreach? I mean, you can't sit there and say for a person that said God imbibed us with all the rights to protect ourselves. No, for a country that wasn't founded on Christian values, it wasn't. But again, guys, how many more times are we going to keep bringing this up? Because so many people believe they can still live their lives and be completely fine. I'm sorry. It doesn't work that way. You do and will eventually, if you want to basically keep up with the rest of us, you will have to get vaccinated, or you're going to have a very difficult life because it's going to affect you on all fronts. I mean, health insurance, they're already starting to charge people who aren't vaccinated a surcharge, the same way that they charge tobaccos and vape smokers and chewers. You already get a surcharge because it's going to cost more to take care of you than it would be somebody who is not. You don't think his health insurance costs are going to go up? The fact that your job is going to tack on more, which means that, again, you're going to feel the effects of this. And I love how they sit there and say a federal mandate will affect small businesses. Really? It seems like the pandemic and people not being able to go out and enjoy themselves what hurt small businesses more. The fact that you're forcing a vaccine mandate, it should have worked. I agree with Fauci. Technically Biden could have gone a little bit further and said, no, we need to have an overall mandate, because we've seen what happens when we give people choice. We have seen what happens. Doesn't work out that well. Matter of fact, things actually get worse. As we're about to show the most recent COVID cases very soon. However, I did want to point out some good news. The Department of Justice, now being led by new Attorney General Merrick Garland, has finally decided to go after that controversial abortion law that has been passed in Texas, ignored by the Supreme Court, that he and the DOJ are starting to take on.
Careful assessment of the facts and the law, the Justice Department has filed a lawsuit against the state of Texas. Our position is set out in detail in our complaint. Its basis is as follows. SB 8 bans nearly all abortions in the state after 6 weeks of pregnancy, before many women even know they are pregnant, and months before a pregnancy is viable. It does so even in cases of rape, sexual abuse, or incest. The act is clearly unconstitutional under long-standing Supreme Court precedent. Those precedents hold, in the words of Planned Parenthood versus Casey, that, quote, regardless of whether exceptions are made for particular circumstances, a state may not prohibit any woman from making the ultimate decision to terminate her pregnancy before viability. Texas does not dispute that its statute violates Supreme Court precedent. Instead, the statute includes an unprecedented scheme to, in the Chief Justice's words, quote, insulate the state from responsibility, close quote. The obvious and expressly acknowledged intention of this statutory scheme is to prevent women from exercising their constitutional rights by thwarting judicial review for as long as possible.
Okay, so kind of wrap this up because he was kind of going legal routes about it. Texas couldn't do it. Texas really was the equivalent of the government overreach that they complain about that Biden is doing with the vaccine mandates. But you know, when it comes to the pro-life people, I have said this once and I've said this again. Pro-life to me is like all lives matter and blue lives matter. You're only put there because someone wanted to make a movement to sit there and say I'm against what the other side is. And if you're probably wondering little about little old me, pro-choice, because a woman's body is her own business. Simple. I mean, you don't see the women talking about a man, so as like I said before, I'll never forget. I've always said there, I will say this once and I'll say this again. I never believe that a bunch of old male guys in a room can sit there and determine what a woman can and cannot do with her body, and yet do not allow the same thing to be done to them. Look, you don't like abortions? Easy. Don't get them. Easiest thing ever. But you want to impose your will on somebody else because of their decisions, which says a lot. Because I'm sorry, if you're pro-life and you're the one sitting outside Planned Parenthood going, you know, abortion is murder, Jesus hates abortioners. Go to every adult or themed store when a person comes out and it looks like a little bit relaxed, do the same thing to them. Because again, abortion is murder, right? Life starts at conception for these people. Same thing. But again, I'm glad that Merrick Garland and the DOJ are beginning to fight that. It is amazingly, deafeningly quiet about the Supreme Court letting that ruling slide. But let's go ahead and move on to COVID cases because I'm sure everything is going down, right? I mean, people not being vaccinated and doing whatever they want to do and expecting the world to get normal. Surely we've calmed down a little bit, right?
Steep rise in COVID hospitalizations in the U.S. Now 4 times more than what the U.S. was seeing last fall. 1 in 4 cases in children. And that new variant, the Mu variant, now reported in at least 28 states. As millions of students go back to school, concern growing over the numbers, authorities are now seeing new case rates among children, surpassing that of adults. Child hospitalizations now at their highest point yet. About 365 children admitted to the hospital for COVID every day. And of course, the school board meetings, the fights over masks and law enforcement now needed in some places. In Pleasant Hill, Missouri, deputies breaking up a dispute. More than 100,000 adults hospitalized for COVID tonight. The Pentagon now sending in help for hospitals in 3 states, Alabama, Arkansas, and Idaho. In fact, our cameras with EMS crews in Boise, that city's chief paramedic now calling this a, quote, really long mass casualty incident. They say nearly all of their patients are unvaccinated. Tonight, 73% of people 12 years and older have now received 1 dose of the vaccine. President Biden will address the nation tomorrow on the virus, and Dr. Jha is standing by right here tonight on this new variant and on boosters. Are they coming? ABC's Kaylee Hartung leading us off from Boise tonight.
Tonight, the country heading into the fall with 4 times more patients fighting COVID in hospitals than a year ago, over 100,000. In Idaho, one of the least vaccinated states, some hospitals now rationing care as a last resort, running out of critical equipment, space, and staff, forced to make tough decisions on who gets treated first.
We don't have enough staff. Nurses are leaving because they're burned out, and we simply don't have enough people. We don't have the manpower to take care of these patients.
Paramedics in Boise telling us nearly every patient with COVID symptoms they're taking to the hospital is unvaccinated.
This is the busiest EMS station in the state of Idaho, and there they go, out on another call.
This COVID virus has been kind of like a really long mass casualty incident that just goes on and on and on. And so it's been definitely tough on my people.
And with each day, mounting concern for the millions of children back in the classroom.
If they can't be vaccinated, you can help by getting yourself vaccinated to protect that child who can't be vaccinated.
1 in 4 new COVID cases are now in children. 2,200 kids are fighting the virus in hospitals. In Georgia, 4-year-old Addison Wisher dying from COVID a day after she was diagnosed while she was recovering from surgery. Ushri Bhattacharya and her husband teach at the University of Georgia. They worry about bringing the virus home to their 5-year-old daughter who has a rare medical condition. The associate professor pleading with the Board of Regents for mandatory masks on campus. This weekend's football game could draw 92,000 fans to the Bulldogs Stadium.
What will I do if something happens to her? Will the board be giving me an answer then? I'm begging them to do the right thing. Enough of politics, enough ideology. Let's make good scientific decisions.
In Pleasant Hill, Missouri, deputies breaking up a dispute over masks when a school board passed a new mask mandate.
We need to go back to a mask mandate with the way that the virus is spreading and how it's affecting children now.
In Miami-Dade County, Florida, the teachers union reporting 13 school district staffers have died of COVID in the last 3 weeks. Officials say none of them were vaccinated. Tomorrow, President Biden is expected to lay out a 6-step strategy to boost vaccinations and stop the spread of the Delta variant. Just as experts are closely tracking a new rare variant called Mu, now confirmed in 28 states. Early evidence suggests it might be more resistant to vaccines. But today, Dr. Fauci making it clear Delta is still by far the most troublesome variant in the U.S.
We have Mu here, and it's getting suppressed by Delta. Delta's 99+% in the United States.
And Kaylee Hartung joins us now from Idaho. And Kaylee, it's certainly not just Idaho when it comes to children and what they're seeing across this country. Authorities now reporting new case rates among children now surpassing that of adults.
Yeah, that's right, David. Children between the ages of 5 and 17, they're getting infected at a higher rate than any other age group. And since school started back in July, 960,000 children have tested positive for COVID. David.
Well, I mean, and it makes you feel any better. There is a new number one, and it's Tennessee. Why? Because we are now the number one highest case of transmission COVID cases in the world. Not just the U.S. Yes, the world. Yay, Tennessee. We always seem to be number one in the most backwardest things. Even more so that, again, what is it going to take? This is all... And I said the evidence in all of this speaks to one thing. Unvaccinated people. What's it going to take? Because it's amazing that when one person urges everybody else to get vaccinated, to wear a mask, they usually get this. And this, especially from a child, is becoming way too often.
Who was a former teacher at the Rutherford County School System, died of COVID because someone wasn't wearing a mask. This is a very...
You can hear and see some of the crowd laughing after Grady Knox shares a personal story about COVID-19. He spoke in front of the Rutherford County School Board Tuesday night in favor of a mask mandate.
This is a very...
He tries to continue his speech, but gets interrupted. The school board chairman then speaks up.
Hey guys, we're here to act professional.
It was complete insanity from my perspective.
Knox is a junior at Central Magnet. He says he could not believe what happened.
If they laugh at me about like a personal story about my grandmother, like that's just disrespectful, I feel. So I was like shaken a little bit.
Board members like Claire Maxwell say the reaction from some in the audience did not sit well with them.
We all wholeheartedly, all 7 of us, were ashamed of what happened, and we want to make sure that nothing like that ever happens again.
Those 2 minutes of the roughly 3-hour meeting have now spread on social media. Knox says it is not a reflection of Rutherford County.
I hope that they can see that there's people like me that want to see change and look past all of the hecklers.
For Knox, he says the laughing will not stop him from speaking up again.
As long as I can get my message across, I don't really think it matters what the crowd thinks of me, because overall, they're not the ones making the decisions for the school.
Again, that says a lot, folks. He literally sat there and just told a story that said, look, I lost my grandmother to this, and it's amazing that as he's telling this, and you can see in the video, especially the one woman behind him just starts laughing. Have we gotten so bad as a society that when someone explains that they lost a loved one due to this COVID-19, that we laugh? That we turn around and say, oh, it's not because of this. And that was Rutherford County here in Tennessee. About 2 weeks ago, I showed another video of Williamson County's public school, Williamson County, where they were having a meeting over mask mandates. And the people literally mobbed those on the board. We know who you are. You won't be able to live around here. You won't be able to do this because of a mask. I've never understood. Almost every time I see this, I just want to basically put on Genesis Land of Confusion. Because there is no other way I can explain this except insanity. That I never thought I would see idiocracy to this maximum level, to where folks don't want to put on a mask, don't want to be vaccinated, don't want to do the things that get us back to a sense of normal. We won't go back to the old normal. The old normal is gone, dead and gone. We will never go back to where we once were. But for the simple fact of the matter, it is amazing to me how so many people want to basically be on the other side. I don't want to be vaccinated. I don't want to wear no mask. Well, then I hope I don't see you in a hospital room anytime soon, because the chances of you surviving are slim and none, and Slim's about to leave town. Especially with a new, aside from the Delta variant, a new variant. And the case rises in children are starting to rise. What's it going to take? Because I've seen people, well, your body can fight out the viruses. I've seen that crap too. And I sit there and I almost want to sit there and tell people, if you believe your body can fight out this thing without vaccinations, then please don't go to the hospital. I came that close. So close to sitting there and telling folks, if they truly believe the vaccine doesn't help them, all I can sit there and say is, well, when you get sick, don't go to the hospital. If you truly believe it, makes them no different than the faith healers that get bitten by poisonous snakes and believe that because of the strength of their faith that they will be healed, when medical marvels like anti-venom would save them. So again, I came that close to sitting there saying it because, again, no one should be refused care, no matter what side of the argument you're on. Nobody should be refused care. But it's those very same people who aren't vaccinated, who are still going out, who are still trying to live life like nothing's wrong, puts us in the situation we are in right now. You can't say the vaccinated are doing that. It seems to be unvaccinated. The ones in the hospitals right now, about a good 98% of those cases, or going on 99% of those cases, are unvaccinated. So what more is it going to take at this point for you unvaccinated people? For if you made it this far in my podcast, I thank you. But I'm pretty sure whenever I say unvaccinated, some people usually turn off. And that's fine. But again, what's it going to take? I hope it doesn't take a loved one. I hope it doesn't take someone close to you, because just like systemic racism and just like the unbalanced system that minorities face in this country, I hope it doesn't have to hit home for you to realize that it's real. I really hope not. And more so as we move along, guys, of course, with the change of the times, unfortunately, benefits have ran out for 7 million Americans on unemployment.
Federal jobless benefits that have been in place to help unemployed Americans during the pandemic have now expired. So what does it mean for the millions who have been receiving those checks? Here's ABC's White House correspondent, Mary Alice Parks.
Tonight, more than 7 million Americans are losing unemployment benefits put in place during the pandemic. April Stokes, an optician and single mom, has not worked full-time since schools closed early last year, unable to find affordable childcare for her 2 kids.
I have 4 job interviews this week. Getting a job's never been an issue. It's what do I do with the kids when they get off at school at 4 until 7 o'clock when I get home from work.
She says those expanded unemployment payments have kept her family afloat.
Realistically, have no idea where I go from here.
Most Republican-controlled states have already rolled back the expanded benefits. Some conservatives arguing they hurt the economy by keeping people out of the workforce. But now 3 federal programs are formally ending. The programs had expanded payments to gig workers and the self-employed, extended payments for the long-term unemployed, and included an additional $300 a week on top of payments from the states. Some economists calling this week a pending benefits cliff. Others worried about the impact on spending as benefits dry up.
Now, the White House has been pushing for that budget deal that would have funding for childcare and other worker benefits, but they have been adamant about not extending these unemployment programs. They say that states can, but many states say they just don't have the budgets.
Mary Alice, thank you.
So again, why I'm not surprised. I'm gonna tell you why I'm not surprised, folks. It's because this is a conservative push. You'll be very hard pressed to find a Democrat that believes in the fact of the matter is, oh well, people can work because this is the thing. This is the conservative point that if there are jobs out there, people want to work. Well, that could not be farther from the truth because what they're not saying is there's plenty of crappy jobs out there with crappy pay rates that they need people for, but people are starting to wake up from that. I have been saying this for like the last couple of podcasts, folks. What do we have learned this pandemic is that a lot of folks are finally seeing the fact of the matter is that yes, I can find better, I can do better, and I don't have to do this job. That's why a lot of people are finding out, especially here in Tennessee, where it's a little bit harder to get certain things, like fast food at night, like going to the grocery store, like doing everyday things. Remember when Walmart used to be open 24 hours a day? Not anymore. Closed at 11 o'clock around here. Remember when you can go to Jack in the Box at 3 a.m. and get food? Well, it's a line around the corner if you want to wait a couple hours. Why? Because they're short staffed. Even Waffle House, the place that used to never close. Waffle House, the place that never closes now in some areas. Why? Short staff. It's amazing when people sit there and say, when they talk about them in the fast food industry, that maybe you guys can go out and you guys can find a better paying job. Well, they did. But going back to unemployment, again, this pandemic itself eroded a lot of paying jobs that will never come back. And because they'll never come back, there's a lot of out there, a lot of skilled workers whose market isn't there anymore, have to figure out what to do. But in the meantime, the bills don't stop. Still gotta pay rent, still gotta pay utilities, still gotta get food, still gotta pay for, if your kids go to school, things of that nature. The bills don't stop just because you don't have a job, they keep going. And that unemployment, especially with the economic bonus behind it, was helping out a lot of families. But again, in true conservative fashion, we're just paying people to stay home. Well, during a pandemic, that's the smartest thing you can do. I mean, Bernie Sanders said it best. Pay people $2,000 a month to stay home. And before anybody starts, we have the money. We just ended a 2-decade-old war in Afghanistan in which the cost for veterans, medical care, and all the above is going to reach $8 trillion. A 2 decades old war costing us $8 trillion, which means that thing, if done even if done under the strictest of spending, probably would not make us break even until maybe our 6th to 8th president from now, which means 6, 4, which means it would probably take us 24 years or so, for us to be anywhere close to paying off that price tag for these wars. So please, oh please, don't tell me we don't have the money. We could have eroded student. We could have eroded student for almost $8 trillion. We could have eradicated student debt. We could have raised the minimum wage overnight. We could have done so much. But like I said, when it comes to conservatives, They only see what they believe. Well, it's personal responsibility. Well, you'll get up there and work a job if you have to. But again, as the next story is about to show, everything's going up but your paycheck. But they're so worried about the simple fact of the matter, because that's been the conservative shtick this whole time. Well, we want to get these people off, get all these werewolf people out there who are driving around in their nice cars and using their food stamps to buy steak and shrimp. And I've never understood that logic. Why do you care what a person buys with a food stamp card? It's there for them. It's there for a reason. I could care less. If you need a food stamp card, cool. There's a reason why, and it's beyond me for me, and it's above me to find out and know. But for the simple fact of the matter, there are some folks out there who are so entwined with that it honestly makes my head spin. But even more so, it's conservatives that are pushing this point, because conservatives are already paid. That's the point I'm trying to make out of this. And just like conservatives, they love capitalism. Why? Because in this next story, you're probably going to be wondering why your steak, your pork, your ground beef just a little bit higher. This is why.
Prices are prompting the White House to take action. Tree prices are up nearly 3% in the last year, but beef and pork up more than 10%.
I see it every week in the grocery store. You look at prices and you're like almost stunned.
At a briefing Wednesday, White House officials took aim at the big meat companies.
It raises a concern about pandemic profiteering, about companies that are driving price increases in a way that hurts consumers.
They say 4 companies, JBS, Tyson Foods, Cargill Meat Solutions Corp., and National Beef Packing Company, control most of the market. And data shows they've been raising prices during the pandemic while generating big profits.
Those companies have seen record or near record profits in the first half of this year. And that has coincided with a period where we've seen disproportionate increase in prices in those segments.
Although the companies have faced unprecedented labor and transportation costs due to the pandemic, the Agriculture Secretary suggests the companies may now be price gouging.
Our job is to make sure that that farmer gets a fair price, and that the producer, when I go to the grocery store and I'm in the checkout line, I'm paying a fair price.
So to ensure consumers and farmers are treated fairly, the White House says it's moving to strengthen current regulations, expand processing capacity, promote American-made labels.
Tyson Foods was the only meat company to respond. It disputes the White House claims and says that market conditions caused by the pandemic and the weather are to blame for the higher prices.
Yes, because for some odd reason that makes sense. I had been saying this, and you know what? You know the funny part is, like I say about conservatives, they would call this unregulated. They would say this is capitalism work at its finest. It's the law of supply and demand. When truly put, it's not. Farmers get screwed. Farmers must be getting screwed. They keep getting a bailout every other 4 years, and again, nobody's asking these questions. Why are these larger corporations that actually own America's food chains allowed to create prices at will? And it's like, well, I would say if there's anything that should be a government overreach, hey, right there. Because I've said it best, and I will keep continuing to say this. Like I said, there are plenty of food deserts out there. Tennessee is definitely one of them. And I would encourage everybody, if you have a little bit of land, grow your own garden. Or if you have a lot of land and you can get cows, hey, have a farm. It's not that hard. Trust me, even though I live in an apartment and I wish I had a little bit of plow land, I would make a garden. That's just me. But I'm not surprised, again, that when we look at everything that's increasing in pricing, it's like, yeah, increasing in pricing, but those corporations are recording profit. Something's not adding up. When, of course, in a market like this, you would think that the prices would lower. But no, they're increasing because profits are increasing. Says so much that, again, Tyson's the only one in there saying, well, we dispute that because it's not our problem. It's the weather, and it's just current conditions. You still got cows. Cows haven't changed in price. Unless you're getting them unless you're doing something to them that, again, we don't want to get in that Oprah Texas cow ranch territory, but let's be honest, she had a point. But moving right along, guys, I did want to cover this because I got through talking about workers, guys. Amazon actually reached the news saying that they will pay full cost of all college tuition, fees, and textbooks for U.S. hourly employees. Now, this means that it is covering for all of its 750,000 U.S. hourly employees. Keep in mind, it sounds great on paper, but keep in mind this is only for Amazon employees. And Amazon does, especially here in Nashville, does employ a lot of subcontractors to work in their distribution warehouses as well as their delivery drivers. And those folks will not be eligible. But let's be honest, this is what's going to have to happen. Because, like I said, with the thing about workers, aside from the fact that we're still sitting at a $7.25 minimum, $7.25 minimum wage, I have been saying that needs to be increased. Specifically, it needs to be over really $26 if we're keeping this with the history of productivity. But the thing about it is, a lot of these employers are now doing this. I mean, Amazon was doing it. Sam's Club and Walmart associates are now getting tuition covered. Target, Costco, they're all doing stuff because why? Now at this point, more power is given to the worker than it is to the employer. Because, like I said before, we're in this age where a lot of people who work are starting to realize they're not going to kill themselves at these jobs, and they're going out and finding things better. And it's a large number of us that are doing it. More power to them. And there's nothing wrong with companies offering full tuition coverage. Like I said, to whether or not you wanted to apply to colleges or some choice careers, let's be honest, for most companies, they do have a list of careers that they will actually pay in full for because it benefits the companies. That's just the way it is. Especially, I also stress heavily because of the nurse shortages out there. There are a lot of places right now that are definitely doing careers in nursing, and the tuition is being paid for, and the pay is becoming very, very high. And there's different avenues, guys. But like I said, it's a great day for employees to finally get some recognition or get things that should have been happening to them. But again, I still say a lot of this can change if the minimum wage was increased. However, I do want to bring this up because this is actually a growing issue that's kind of near and dear to my heart as well, where Black unemployment is rising. And keep in mind, it's not just those same folks they want to call stereotypes about it. These are educated, possibly 1 or 2 degree having Black folks that are having issues finding employment in the U.S. workforce. Let's say, for example, as it says here at the top of the paragraph, the unemployment rate dropped to 5.2% from 5.4. But in the 2021 jobs report showed that Black workers are facing a bigger struggle to find unemployment compared with job seekers of other races. For example, the unemployment rate among Black workers in August rose to 8.8%. That was coming from 8.2%. While apparently the other races, the white unemployment rate fell to 4.5%, Asians fell to 4.6%, and Hispanic and Latino workers went from 6.6 down to 6.4. So, of course, that's the question I always want to ask because, again, as a person who has 2 degrees, I can stress so much degrees and a couple of IT certificates. I can't stress heavily. I felt every bit of that article where it's like, what is about unemployment? What is it about not employing educated Black folks? And this is gonna be a little bit personal, but hey, I'm recording this at 12:34 in the morning. I'm gonna be a little bit personal. I've never understood employers that seem to shirk or turn away educated Black individuals in certain positions. Unless it's grunts. I mean, I'll be honest with you. It is easier for a Black person to get a quote unquote grunt job than it is to get a higher job or a job of management. Because let's be honest, it's not who you know or it's not what you know, but who you know. Yes, that rings true. It also depends on how much butt you can kiss, or as I said in my old job, unless you're a part of the oral fixation gluteus maximus club. I was sending my goodbye email, and that's what I put in there. But I had to ask this question because, again, it's like employers said it best: we want workers, but not that way. So what are you saying? Because Black folks, like everybody else, we simply want to work. But what are you saying when you won't hire an educated Black person, but you'll hire everybody else? I'm just saying it sounds a little suspect, which it does. But anyway, with that being said, guys, we're going to move on to our feel-good segment, because usually on How the Frack We Got Here, we do cover a lot of doom and gloom, sometimes make you lose your faith in humanity stories. But hey, it's Saturday, it's the weekend. On this day, which could be heavy for a lot of people, we want to bring in some light. We want to bring in some joy, some happiness, some things that let you know that it's going to be all right. And who else could actually tell us that everything's going to be all right but Steve from Blue's Clues? And if you've seen this clip today, or if you've seen it throughout the week, it does hit you, because for a lot of kids these days who are turning 21 or 22, they'll remember this guy from Blue's Clues.
Hi. You got a second? Okay. You remember how when we were younger we used to run around and hang out with Blue and find clues and talk to Mr. Salt, freak out about the mail and do all the fun stuff. And then one day I was like, oh, hey, guess what? Big news. I'm leaving. This is my brother Joe. He's your new best friend. And then I got on a bus and I left. And we didn't see each other for like a really long time. Can we just talk about that? Great. Because I realized that was kind of abrupt. I just kind of got up and went to college. And that was really challenging, by the way, but great, because I got to use my mind and take a step at a time, and now I literally am doing many of the things that I wanted to do. And then look at you, and look at all you have done, and all you have accomplished in all that time. And it's just so amazing, right? I mean, we started out with clues, and now it's what? Student loans, and jobs, and families, and some of it has been kind of hard. You know? I know you know. And I wanted to tell you that I really couldn't have done all of that without your help. And in fact, all the help that you helped me with when we were younger is still helping me today, right now. And that's super cool. I guess I just wanted to say that after all these years, I never forgot you, ever. And I'm super glad we're still friends. Thanks for listening. You look great, by the way. Whatever it is you're doing, it's working.
It still gets people. It still gets people, especially for the simple fact of the matter is, like, 25 years later, that was the 25th anniversary of Blue's Clues, and he came back to just hit you in the feels. But the next one I got, guys, I did actually show this on my midweek review, but I love what this guy's doing. And again, this is the reason why I say mental health is needed, especially among the black folks. That sounded so terrible. African American community sounds so much better. Yes, mental health in the African American community. I apologize, guys. It's 12:38 in the morning. Bear with me.
Community, we're taught to survive. You know, I spent a whole lifetime saying, why me? Why me? And then it all hit. This is why, because I was going to be used, like, to build a platform so people can get some help. And when you think about here in Chicago, it's such a divide when it comes to having the resources, which is why we took a risk. We'll open up this amazing coffee shop so we can say we're going to step out and we're going to pay for people to get some help, because healing is a marathon.
You know, for a long time, I sort of suffered in silence.
This series is trying to shine a light on these topics.
There is no stigma to me. It's mine.
We want to normalize talking about hard stuff so we can be on the road to healing. Fair enough? Fair enough. Fair.
Christopher Lamarck cares for his Chicago community as he knows firsthand how it feels to not be cared for.
I was abandoned and abused for a span of 12 years. Essentially, like, the first 30 years of my life was super traumatic. And I dealt with a lot of complications: physical, mental, and emotional abuse, high levels of rejection. And so I carried all of that. I spent a lot of years being extremely lonely.
But you made it out.
Yeah, I definitely made it out, and I'm super proud of that. And that's why I say healing is a marathon, man. You can't rush this.
In October 2018, Christopher experienced what he calls a breakdown at a coffee shop.
and I just started crying uncontrollably. I just couldn't stop. And so I went to therapy. After some challenging sessions, my therapist sat up in his seat and he said, "It wasn't your fault that you were abused." And for the first time, I heard it because I had been feeling like it was my fault, right? Because that's what happens. It's so much shame that comes with being abused.
As Christopher worked to heal his own trauma, he felt called to help others do the same.
I went home one day and I wrote down 3 words. I wrote down coffee because of the mental and emotional breakdown happened inside of a coffee shop. And then hip hop. Hip hop saved my life from committing suicide. I always had a chance to write. It was my first form of therapy. And mental health, because in my community, we're taught to survive. And we wasn't talking about it, so I wanted to normalize this conversation.
And with that, the nonprofit organization Coffee, Hip Hop, and Mental Health was born.
What's on your menu? You've got some funky coffee names?
Yes, so we got the Beehive, which is a honey lavender latte, paying homage like to Beyonce. And then we have the Diddy, which is a cold brew with a shot of espresso and some butter pecan.
Yep.
So
I love it. I love it.
Absolutely. And the Queen Latifah chai. So many things to pay homage to the incredible artists that built this hip hop thing.
Can I get a little side of warm meek milk in my Diddy?
You know what? You absolutely can. Do you want oat or do you want you want almond? Let me know.
I love it, man.
But at this coffee shop, every hip-hop inspired drink goes to free therapy sessions for individuals in need.
Knowing, Chris, what you know now, that you had to deal with it. You've been holding all this emotional PTSD baggage since you were a kid, and now you know the importance of dealing with it. How do you help other people in the community deal with their stuff?
Number one, we start like creating safe spaces for people to talk about their stuff without bias, consequences, or judgment. And also they can't afford it. So we said, what we're going to do is sell coffee and merchandise, and we're going to see if we can pay for 250 people to go to therapy.
Individuals like Chicago public school teacher Faith Overall.
If I had to pay out of pocket, chances were I was just going to have to skip out on therapy, right? So if we have to choose between what's going to provide a roof over our head and what's going to help us to navigate life, we're kind of conditioned to provide the roof over our heads instead. And so having access to free therapy gave me the opportunity to actually get to what I needed to get to. Being an educator, I think that you can talk to anyone and they have a story about a teacher that harmed them. And chances are that's because that teacher themselves was unhealed. So if I heal myself, I have the opportunity to heal my students.
Why do you think it's so difficult to break the stigma of normalizing therapy and communicating and talking about your issues in certain areas? Why is it so hard?
So when we think about going to therapy, it's almost like an uncomfortable thing. Why are you going to therapy? What's wrong with you? Because we share that language, that misinformation, not having a proper understanding, people are afraid to be ultimately vulnerable. I want to tell people that it's probably one of the most beautiful things you can do for yourself, and it's actually very strong to be vulnerable, to own your emotions.
And with Christopher's help, this community is starting to do just that.
And what's been the reaction from the people, from a couple hundred people that have gotten free therapy that never had it? What are they saying to you, when they walk in the coffee shop?
Thank you. Thank you for this. Man, this is amazing. I wish I had this. People don't come in just for a cup of coffee. They come in because of the therapeutic transaction. The space is filled with tranquility and peace and love. People want to be seen. And we tell our staff, make sure you love on them. And that's the issue. A lot of people are not seen. And we give them opportunity for a single moment to be heard and to be seen. I tell people all the time, healing is the new cool. That is the new cool. And we just have to keep saying that over and over again. And that's how you re-change the narrative.
And honestly, I love that. That to me is, especially the fact of coffee, hip hop, mental health. When he turns around and says, "These are, hip hop saved my life," I was like, my mind went back to a certain track by a certain rapper. But I love the fact of what that man is saying, and I for one, for mental health, like myself, I could find words, that'd be great right now. I actually seeked out assistance as well, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with seeking help, because mental health is so vital, especially in the Black community, because we have been through some things. I almost said some other words, but we have been through some things, and mental health is vital. It's just like your mental is just like your physical. You must train the mind as well as the body, and I love the fact that he's using coffee and as a way of his nonprofit to bring people the help they really do need. So last thing I got, guys, because you know me about NASCAR and the league of left turns, but I thought this was cool because I kept on saying NASCAR's big problem was diversity. Even though with the inclement of Bubba, I won't say Watkins, or is it Johnson, his last name? But there's also, of course, Michael Jordan actually buying a NASCAR team as well. And now there is actually NASCAR's first Black woman pit crew member, which I think is pretty cool. If it plays.
Past barriers. Brianna Daniels is the first Black woman tire changer in NASCAR's history. She's a graduate of a program aimed to increase diversity in the race cars, the pits, and also the stands. Here's ABC's Faith Abube, who had a lot of fun on this assignment.
Getting ready to race.
Thank you for allowing us all to see another day and giving us another chance and opportunity to be able to pit a race car.
The race cars take off. The adrenaline on pit road is running high. Brianna Daniels' sole focus is on one car. As it zooms on the track upwards of 200 miles an hour, Brianna is alert, behind the barrier wall, air gun in hand, ready to jump towards the moving car at a moment's notice. And here it comes for a pit stop. Brianna and team quickly yank off and replace the 70-pound tires. Repeat on the other side, and the car is back in the race within seconds.
It's a lot of pressure.
As she often is, Brianna, the only woman in this pit crew.
Brianna is a beast mode tire changer. Ready to go?
Ready to roll.
Her coach, Dion Williams, says Brianna succeeds with grit and focus.
She's one of the only females who can carry 2 tires effectively with no fall off and still get back to her gun and hit lug nuts just like the guys can do.
Make sure all of them are tight on either side.
What would an 18, 17-year-old college student, Brianna Daniels, think of where you are right now?
Girl, you are crazy. Especially a little Black girl like myself at that time, definitely was like, I'm never getting into NASCAR. It wasn't even a thought in my mind.
But now, not only is she in NASCAR, at just 27 years old, the former college basketball point guard is also making history. She's now the first Black woman tire changer to pit in NASCAR's top racing series.
Following Ray Black Jr. on the track right now, and he will have Brianna Daniels, who will be the first African-American tire changer to pit a Cup car tonight on this car.
For NASCAR, the hope is to have more people who look like Brianna in the pit, in the cars, the stands, and beyond. Max Siegel exclusively manages NASCAR's Drive for Diversity program for the last 12 years, working with his team to recruit, train, and support minorities like Brianna to increase diversity in all areas of NASCAR.
I feel like for the first time since I've been involved, a lot of those things are starting to be addressed head on, and progress is being made.
Siegel, NASCAR's first highest ranking Black executive, says over the last decade, more than 60 of NASCAR's women and minority drivers have come through the program. Since 2009, the program has trained 75 gender and ethnically diverse candidates for NASCAR's pit crews.
The biggest stock car race in the world.
This year, at the Daytona 500, Siegel watched proudly when alumni of the program made up 10% of the field, including stars like Daniel Suarez, Carl Lawson, and Bubba Wallace.
Things have changed and are continuing to change, and that's good. That's a lot of ex-athletes, former football players, former basketball players that are coming out and giving NASCAR its shot.
While the Drive for Diversity program is keen to celebrate progress, Siegel knows success requires much more work.
Do you think there's been resistance to some of this diversity effort?
I'm not naive. There are a lot of people that resisted. I personally choose to ignore the resistance.
You're doing a good job.
Stay focused on the mission.
Is it from them wobbling though?
It takes a person with
You control the gun.
tough skin,
Don't worry about them.
to be able to catch everything that, the NASCAR world throws at you, that the fans throw at you.
As she blazes a path for black girls in sports, Brianna says she's had to tune out tons of negativity.
People are like, oh, she sucks. What does it matter that she's black? And it's like, well, why wouldn't that matter? You don't see that every day in NASCAR. Why wouldn't that be talked about?
It has to be a purposeful pursuit.
Dr. Keitra Armstrong teaches race and inclusion in sports at the University of Michigan. Historically, she says NASCAR has not been a welcoming space for black people. Until last year, Confederate battle flags flew high at races.
You see that symbol and you know that it evokes these feelings of hatred and racial denigration. If you're a black consumer, it's hard to enjoy the sports or the leisure or the activity when you're surrounded by this ambiance or this effervescence that's racially discriminating.
Over the years, some of NASCAR's drivers have also been embroiled in controversies about race. On the track,
Hey, what pit box are you in?
and behind the wall,
What pit stall are you in?
change has been slow. There are few women and minorities represented.
It's like you must be doing something right.
It wasn't until 2012, 64 years after NASCAR began, that it signed its first female pit crew member, Christmas Abbott. Since then, only 15 pit crew members have been women. Only 3 have been women of color. The NASCAR fan base is also overwhelmingly white. Based on NASCAR's own data, 25% of fans identify as multicultural, only 9% as black.
It's pretty low.
It is very low. I think that, you will get an honest admission from everyone in the sport that there is a ton of work to be done.
Recently, celebrities like Michael Jordan and rapper Pitbull have bought into the sport, helping diversify the face of NASCAR's team ownership, an investment that could drive new interest across the board.
The potential is still there for this sport to be bigger than it's ever been.
And diversity is going to drive that?
Diversity has driven the reason why this sport is going to be bigger than it's ever been.
Yeah, I do a pit stop for y'all and everything.
There was a time where when you think about race and sport, NASCAR would be on the not so positive end of this spectrum.
So is that a swipe right?
I think it's really becoming more intentional
Let's do this one.
in addressing its past, its racist past, and things that it can do better to respond to this multicultural generation and this multicultural market.
Well, you're standing back there, you're like...
As for what success looks like,
Do you feel like you have to prove yourself?
Each and every day.
10, 20 years from now, the Drive for Diversity program is still writing that chapter, but Brianna Daniels already likes where it's going.
There's always room for improvement, but like I said, I'm very proud of NASCAR
It was a little warm up, nice warm
for
up.
all the progress it's made.
Always room for improvement.
Yeah, I love to see it.
Wait on 3.
In Michigan,
1, 2, 3. Wait.
Faith Abube, ABC News.
Speeding into the history books, there are thanks to Faith.
And I thought that was pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, legal left turns, it's like I said, it's one of those last areas where the Mayo may not be dominant anymore. And again, it's always cool to actually see different areas we go into. Like I said, keep in mind we're definitely crossing into some barriers. Not just NASCAR, not just swimming, because trust me, there's gonna be a Michael Phelps type that's gonna come one day, and it's just like Simone Biles, just like Gabby Douglas, Dominique Dawes, and all even Sha'Carri Richardson. Yes, Sha'Carri Richardson may have taken an L, but I think she'll come back strong and blaze her own trail. But again, like I said, I just like to see black excellence. That just makes me feel good inside. But that's really going to do it for our podcast, guys. I do thank you all for watching and for liking and starting. I know you can't start watch parties anymore, but I'm pretty sure you guys are going to comment on this. So before I do get out of here, I do have to do some shameless plugging. I'm going to first start with my buddy Big VZA Dot, which you can find him at Avon Witherspoon on Facebook or Big VZA Dot on socials. As he usually does his 2 shows, Smoking Trailer Sundays, every Sunday from 6:30 to 9 p.m., in which he does trailers of movies and video games he finds actually interesting and wants to share with you. He also has the RAF podcast, like America's Funniest Home Videos, done by WorldStar, every Tuesday from 6:30 to 9 p.m. He also does have his own gaming podcast, Making Plays, and he definitely goes live. And when to find that out, Just check him out, either by Westwood on Facebook or Big VZA on all socials. As for yours truly, actually, before I get there, let me not forget Ari and Geek Salad, which you can find them on YouTube and Facebook as well. Also part of the Brethren podcast and Brethren. I've come to get to know, and they're pretty cool guys, and always want to share their content as they share mine. Like I said, we're all about building each other up in this community. Before I do get out of here, this is how you can tell this was recorded late at night. I apologize immensely. The link at the bottom, you copy and paste that into your copy and paste that into your browser. This is terrible. As you copy and paste that into your browser, we'll take you to my link tree for all of my podcasts, How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit, and of course the Offense podcast. My IG, BlackFox447. Feel free. I'm struggling to this end. Feel free to follow me there on IG, as I usually post movie reviews, video game reviews, and sometimes workout stuff, and sometimes recreational stuff. I try to work out. I do a couple push-ups, but definitely follow me there. Again, guys, COVID-19 is real. Please protect yourselves. Get vaccinated. Wear a mask. Let's actually get these numbers down. That is the only way these numbers can go down. Aside from the simple fact of the matter of doing what we need to do. It's honestly, guys, not just about us anymore. So with that being said, guys, it's not just you. It's for everybody. And last but not least, Get Bit. Like I said, with Get Bit. This is getting terrible. You guys are good. You guys are good to see me. It's been a long day. But the last thing I'll say about How the Frack We Got Here, guys, is all about staying informed. We are not trying to change minds, persuade people. We are simply trying to do what news agencies of old try to do, which is basically give you all the information allowed to make up your own mind. We do a lot better as a society when we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We make decisions. We try to right history's wrongs by actually moving us forward in the direction we should have been doing. Like electing our first Madam Vice President who was black. Still hoping for Michelle Obama in 2024 and that her husband, former president, can be a Supreme Court justice. We know we would love that. With that being said, guys, do take care of yourselves and each other. Thank you for watching. If you're watching the playback, please comment if it's live. I still want to know you guys' opinions on everything that was said in the articles that we found. Aside from that, guys, take care of yourselves and each other, and we will get through this. Peace.